so today I'm going to talk about Lumo servers. Has anybody ever heard of Embed-Anything and Starlight Search? Please raise your hand. Oh, thank you. Okay, so Lumo stands for Lightweight Ultra Fast MCP Orchestrator. So a little bit about me. I'm Sonam. I'm the co-author and maintainer of both Embed-Anything and Lumo. I worked as a GenerativeAI Evangelist at Articulate, which is Intel's way of getting into generative AI because they were quite lagging behind. I also worked as an AI researcher at Saama. That means I worked with clinical trials, data analysis, etc. You might also know me from Rasa or Qdrant. Okay, so who hasn't heard about MCP? Who has heard about MCP? I accepted everyone. Okay, so MCP is probably the only piece of tech that has more builders than users. What that means, you need more AI applications using MCPs, right? So what are those applications? So one of them is Claude Desktop, which uses MCP, and by the way, MCP was developed by Anthropic. So today's talk is about agents, MCP. I always go deep into why, what, and how, right? And multi-agents. Today's talk is not about just putting jargons together. And by the way, it's my own library, so I'm not selling any stuff, where it's actually helpful and where it is not helpful, right? So how many of you have worked with agents? How many of you have deployed agents in production? How many of you use Llama Index? Okay, cool. All right. So a bit about Starlight Search. So Starlight Search is my own personal project. It has nothing to do with the Articulate or Intel. So it has two libraries. The first came Embed-Anything last year. It has more than 300k download, almost 300k downloads and 700 plus stars, which is a highly performant, memory-safe, modular embedding pipeline. What it means is that it's modular because you can use any model available on Hugging Face Link. You just have to choose the architecture. It's modular because you can use any vector database with one word of code, because we have given all this vector streaming methods that if you go to the repository, you will understand. And yeah, memory safe, it's written in Rust and highly performant. So 6 months ago, we started also working on agents because agent hype was going on, and MCP just came out. And by the way, we were the first people who introduced MCP in agents even before LangChain did. So it can work both with CLI, and you can also deploy it as a server. Right. I will also get into the dependencies of Lumo because it's quite important to understand what we are based on. So don't worry, I'll cover everything today. Okay, so the first thing, just go through it. But I know it's G2G and you guys prefer Golang, but it just for one slide, bear with me. Motivation for building in Rust. Okay, so the binary are easy, so it creates really cool binary that is easy to integrate with other applications like Tori. You can do async tool calls. So Rust is very good at asynchronous applications, right? Memory safe, it uses borrower checker, no garbage collectors there. Bare metal means you can access the you can have the low-level control without actually, going through the OS kernels, right? Multi-threading. So Rust has MPSC channel which actually can communicate between two threads, right? And you can pass on different data between the two threads, and that makes it very, reduced latency. Then it's highly performant, of course. What does highly performant mean? So our applications are lightweight, reduced latency, and low resource usage. I'll get into it, each point. What is memory safety? So this meme was made by me. Rust has a way to handle memory through stack and heap. What they call it, borrower checker. It avoids dangling pointers. So you don't know how many times I have been asked this question. Why didn't you use C++ instead of Rust? So, okay, does anyone have the answer? Because I have already given it here. No, everything is manual in C++. So there's a lot of ways to have dangling pointers, and so avoids manually allocating memory. And also Candle, Embed-Anything is based on Candle, which is again based on Rust, which is like easier Rust way to run transformer without being dependent on Torch. And if you have run Torch and if you have deployed it, you will have to deal with 2.5 GB extra memory. So this is much better way to run transformer models. Okay, so what is multi-threading or MPSC channel that I just talked about in Rust? So we created this method called vector streaming. Okay, so what we realized with Llama Index and LangChain and all the things that came before us, everything was extremely sequential, right? You have to fetch your PDF files, you have to extract your text, you have to make chunks, then you have to do embedding process, and then you have to observe it on vector database, right? And embedding process or embedding model is it consumes a lot of resource. It is very slow, super slow. So what we did here is we built a buffer system, right? So all the chunks are stored in buffer, and each of them goes to embedding model, and embedding models generate embeddings, which again came back to thread 1. And this communication is done with MPSC channel. It can be done only with this. So this is the second reason we always choose Rust to build our infrastructure. Okay, now coming to agents. Okay, so how does this evolution happen? How does LLM become an instruct LLM becomes a workflow, then it becomes an agent? Because remember, LLM is just a next token prediction, right? So you have to tune it in a specific task to make it usable, right? You have for classification or for any work, or even to make it work in workflow. So this blog post, building effective agents. How many of you read this blog post? Because if you have worked with agents, you might have come across this. Okay, so this was released by Anthropic last year in December, and it could quickly take off. I have given all the resources I have used in the footnotes. You can check it out later. So this blog post basically introduces what is agent and how it is different from workflow, right? So what is an instruct LLM? LLM does basic tasks using tools. It has access to memory, retrieved information, tools, right? This is basic LLM. What is workflow? So LLM orchestrated by code. That is, you have to manually code every LLM call, and then it becomes workflow. When does workflow become agents? It's when LLM decides its own trajectory, right? A lot of RL is involved in agents. So before getting into MCP, I really want to clear out tool calling, because MCP is just a fancier way of tool calls. So how many of you have worked with tool calls, have written their own stuff? Cool. Okay, So what is tool call? Basically, it's a you can say it changes natural language into structured data. It kind of makes all the argument for your functions with the prompt in JSON. This is me giving talk about it in PyData Global. You can check it out. It's in the footnote. Now, okay, coming to the talk. What is MCP or MPC? First of all, before going into what is MCP, I want to focus on why MCP, right? Because as I said, it's just a fancier tool call. And tool call is nothing but changing natural language into structured data, right? So why MCP? For external services like GitHub, Slack, right? These tiger teams, what the Anthropic calls them, the tiger teams will develop MCP servers. That is, they want to give their data to the agents. Like basically, agents need data, need tools, it needs prompt, etc., etc. What this MCP is doing is it is just serving as a protocol of giving it access. Like it's a standard way, like it has standardized way of giving data to agents. That's all, right? Low tech debt, because I will just explain it in some time. Why low tech debt? Standardization makes it easy to scale services, right? Imagine you writing everything for the agent. It will not scale as much as, like, you know, you can integrate it with the external services easily. Okay, when not to use it, when you have internal APIs, internal tool calls, which is much, it's easier to do make agent and then add tools if you have internal data, if you want to keep it internal, right? You do not need external services. So why MCP? Separation of concerns. You do not want to deal with data collection, data parsing. That's when MCP comes in. You just want to use one of the MCP server. So as I told you, I'll clear it out. What is the difference between tool call and MCP? So if you're doing tool call, your data collection, parsing, prompts, everything becomes a part of the agent code. Like you have to maintain it, you have to take care that it's updated. But when you use MCP, the data collection becomes outside, like it is not your code base, you are using someone else's MCP. So right, I hope the separation of concern and what it means is very clear, and the difference between tool call and MCP is very clear. Now, what is MCP? So at the end, it's just a protocol, right? Everyone runs after fancy things, but at the end, it's just a communication protocol. This has happened everywhere, like data communication protocol. So your agent, your LLM needs data sources. It needs tools. It needs different workflows. MCP provides a communication, standardized communication to get access to these things, right? Data sources, tools, and workflows. Okay, this is, there's a lot of stuff going on in the architecture. I don't want to get into details, but if you want to see it from like view height, it is made up of two layers, like data layer and transport layer. So data layer implements JSON, RPC, server, and client. So your MCP client basically have a one-to-one connection, and the MCP server has details of what it can do, and then LLM decide which MCP it want to use. So the transport layer has two things. So MCP could run locally and it could run on a server. If it is running locally, it will be using streamable HTTP transport, and if it is using the server, if it is using locally, then STDIO transport will be used, and if it is using remote server, then it will be using streamable HTTP. So there are two layers. Data layer is much more closer, and and data layer is more like authentication and decision and processing. Transport layer is basically where you are running it locally or through a server, right? Okay, so after all this talk, running locally, running on server, so you can run Lumo both locally and on server. So how to run it? So you can run it by 3 ways: from source, using Docker, or this is available on our GitHub, by the way. Everything is available on GitHub. One second. Okay, so this is Lumo. Yeah, so if you need any help, it's already there. You can raise issue if you need any help. So yeah, using Docker, or you can also use pre-built image. The API endpoint. So the API endpoint is designed based on task, which model you want to use, and then base URL is the same as the model. Like, it depends on the model. Like, if you change to Gemini, it will change. Tools will be removed because now MCP has come. If you can use tool if you want to, if you have the, if you want to use tools, again, it will be LLMs call which one to use, tools or MCP. Now agent type will be changed from function calling to MCP, right? Okay, so if you want to deploy it, there's a YAML file that we give called server.yaml, in which you have to configure your MCP and your system prompt. So system prompt basically kind of controls the agentic behavior, how the agents wants to behave, what kind of data it want to use, which tool calls it want to use, etc. And these are the MCPs, right? This is Excel search that we have used for MCP1, then fetch. You can also use other MCP3s. So every MCP server has its own way of command and args that it needs, which you have to check it to the MCP server. So yeah, if you want to add more server, you can just see the example of how what command, what arguments, what API key it might need, right? Okay, so if you want to get into details, there's a walkthrough tutorial that I made in which it's using MCP step 5. I'll just show you a demo also. It's using Postman to kind of access the local server. Now the pyramids of scheme, like the dependencies, right? I told you it has dependencies. So MCP Rust SDK is the core which develops the MCP to different languages and stuff, which Goose AI uses and built this agents for CLI. Like, it can only be used for running it locally on iOS CLI, and we are based on top of Goose AI, which is like Lumo server, right? So don't worry if you do not want to get into everything. We will also be releasing the APIs for you, and you would have access just through API if you want to do it. Again, MCP versus tool call. Okay, so MCP sounds like a good process, but it is a security nightmare. But I think everyone is kind of understood it as a security nightmare, so a lot of things are getting introduced to combat the security protocols. But still, smarter hackers are always exist, and there's things like tool injection, or you call it like tool poisoning, in which they just give access to a tool which has its internal loops, and then LLM chooses that and give the data back to with using that tool. So a different kind of hackings that is involved. I won't go into details, but you can check it out. Okay, so lastly, I want to say that this talk is from Anthropic, which is for context window, like how do you write, how do you build your context window. So this is my opinion, like this is completely my opinion, that MCP is just a tool for context engineering, just for your agent to get more information, just for your agent to understand this environment better. Okay, what is multiple agents? So with Lumo you can also run multiple agents. So we are doing supervisor agent. So there are two types of multi-agent systems that exist. There's a supervisor agent and there is a swarm agent. In swarm, there's no supervisor, so every agent like is a supervisor agent, right? So what is managed agent? So it has its own tools. Every managed agent comes with its own tools, right? Because that's basically agent calling tools. For multiple agent communication, so for a long time MCP wasn't like considered even for multi-agent, because it only considered like its tool. You can only access the tool or agent. But now MCP, if you think servant can be clients, you can easily use MCP as well in multi-agent communication. Okay, so I think we moved pretty fast. Takeaways and stickers, if you're wondering where did I get this limited edition stickers, it's mine. So the takeaways are: MCP enables data collection and parsing that can be done separate and isolated process. Uses it use it just for external services, and Starlight Search build cool stuff. Thank you.